Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm joined by 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young, as well as the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hirsch. I'm Doug Falconer, Agriculture Director at GX94 in Yorkton. And gentlemen, everybody's talking about the big snowstorm we received this week.
Well, it's April, and you can get in this country. You can get snow. You can get snow in May as well. It seems to surprise some urban people when you get snow in April or May, but it's not that unusual. But across southern areas, especially west central and southwest Saskatchewan, the moisture is going to be very welcome. Will create a bit of a problem for people that are in the midst of calving season, and extra precautions and extra work for them. Well, they will welcome the moisture as well. Always nice if it would fall as rain, but at this time of year, it seems like if you get any significant amount of precipitation, it tends to be in the form of snow eventually.
And Ryan, you had a chance to speak with a couple of producers about the snow in the southern, I guess, south of the Trans-Canada Highway.
That's correct. I spoke with Jeff Yorga, the president of the Saskatchewan Stock Growers Association. He's kind of in that blanking on the community. It's one of those communities where you think you've heard of everything, and then you
Flintoft.
yeah, Flintoff. Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those communities where I've never heard of before, and I thought I pretty much heard every community, but not until today. But yeah, he's around that area, south of Assiniboia is where that community is located, and he said that they got both snow and rain. But it's obviously also welcome moisture, as that area hasn't really had a precipitation type of event in April in the last decade or so, so fairly dry there. So it's good news for farmers in that area. And then I also spoke with Jake Legui, who's around the Fillmore Weyburn area. He said they got more rain than snow, which kind of mildly surprised me when I was talking to him this morning. But nonetheless, he woke up to basically a sheet of ice around the area, so it was a little bit slippery and kind of a kind of a challenge to navigate around areas. But the moisture is definitely welcome to southern areas of the province where drought challenges have occurred in multiple years. Meanwhile, in Yorkton, Doug, I could imagine you guys still got quite a bit of moisture.
Yeah, we got about 6 to 8 inches of snow on Thursday. It's still snowing Friday afternoon as we're recording this right now. It's not a great deal since last night, but we are still getting snow nonetheless. Most of the snow here in Yorkton had been gone before this, but I understand further north at Kelvington, Wadena, Priestville, Sturgis, Norquay area, Pelly, they had a big dump of snow last week. So this is insult to injury for them if they're still getting it as well. Also, big news came out on Friday of the Strait of Hormuz reopening to all traffic. Kevin, that's good news.
It is, and it was given the events earlier in the week and how things were looking. I thought the strait was going to remain closed for a considerable length of time until they continued to work things out. Hopefully, it remains open and shipping can get back to some semblance of normal. Of course, with all those ships backed up there and in many cases infrastructure damage and then ships needing to load and get out of the strait and then get the long voyage to wherever they're going, this is going to take some time. But oil prices dropped almost immediately. With that, canola prices also tumbled. The two have been quite in many degrees in tandem when things are going up or down due to the Middle East conflict. I don't expect fertilizer prices to change the same way that oil and gas prices change, however. While oil and gas might eventually ratchet down what you see as a price at the pump, I think fertilizer prices are going to remain high for a considerable length of time. Because fertilizer is in short supply, takes time to manufacture, takes time to distribute. Some countries are stopping exports, trying to fill their own domestic needs. So I worry that there's going to have a long tail on this high price for fertilizer, even if the Middle East conflict comes to a successful conclusion.
And of course, on that, we heard Ottawa mention that the excise fuel tax for gas and diesel, the federal tax, will be suspended as of this coming Monday through September 7th. And do you think, Ryan, that's going to be big news at all?
Well, in terms of regular consumers, definitely a big benefit. That's going to save about 10 cents a liter on regular gasoline and 4 cents a liter on regular diesel. So we'll see an immediate benefit there at the pumps. This is going to go for quite a while from this coming Monday, April 20th, all the way up until Labor Day around September 7th. So we'll get a few months of a little bit cheaper gas compared to what we've seen before, especially when it comes to diesel. Some areas have had well over $2 a liter. So good news there. But for farmers, however, not so much. Kind of surprised me, actually. But that's mainly due to on-farm diesel being exempt. So farmers won't be able to, kind of feel that kind of benefit. But again, in terms of regular gasoline and for other applications on the farm, they'll definitely see a benefit.
Kevin, I had a chance to speak with SARM President Bill Huber and APAS President Bill Probilski. They both said for farmers in general, the reduction in the excise tax for those isn't a big deal because they already weren't paying tax on that as farm fuel.
That's true, although people are buying gasoline for their regular use and have that expense like everyone else. And farmers will be affected indirectly if you're getting grain custom hauled, for instance, even delivery of whatever you might have bought at an auction sale, and those people will save a little bit of money on their diesel fuel. And rural municipalities, they're not using farm exempt, tax exempt fuel, so they still will benefit from this reduction of 4 cents a liter on diesel. But I suspect that 4 cents on diesel and then even perhaps the 10 cents on gasoline, that the normal market forces, if the Strait of Hormuz remains open, may eclipse those savings and may be a bigger saving than what the excise tax reduction has been.
Some other news this week was that the Saskatchewan government did announce that they're going ahead with a review of the Farmland Security Act. That was something you followed up on, Ryan.
That's right. Listened to a little bit of the news conference audio from one of our reporters who was at the legislature for the announcement. And basically, what it amounts to is just kind of an overall comprehensive review, building off of the work already done by the Farmland Ownership Advisory Committee, which was already looking into this sort of thing over the fall and the wintertime, and came out with a number of recommendations and areas where some regulations and other legislation could be improved upon or updated, considering the last update to this act was back in 2016, so about 10 years. So kind of time that this sort of thing was updated to kind of reflect the current day-to-day challenges that the agriculture industry faces. A lot of it also centered around the issue of foreign ownership of farmland. Once again, government officials saying that there is no evidence or any names mentioned during consultations supporting the idea of foreign ownership of farmland, although we know from some farmers around the province that they are convinced of otherwise through other means, stuff that that's not coming to mind right now, but nonetheless, people are convinced that there is that sort of thing. So they'll be looking into that as well, and some other areas where the advisory committee didn't look into, such as making things easier for younger farmers and taking over the operation from their parents through financing and some of those means. But we'll see where that goes from here. Provincial Ag Minister David Merritt said between now, they're hoping to have an updated version of the legislation in place by next spring. So consultations will be this year, and hopefully something is done by next spring.
Kevin, your thoughts on the review?
Well, I think that the government has come under some criticism, both from the NDP opposition as well as some farm groups or farm sentiment out in the country that maybe the Farmland Security Board and the Farmland Security Act needs to be looked at, adjusted, strengthened, loopholes changed, some things that maybe aren't as relevant anymore, like home quarter protection. So I think the government is responding to that, and you can't, at this point, you don't know what the proposed changes may be, so hard to criticize that. They may have been able to try to do it in a little bit more hurry-up mode and have something available for legislation in the fall, although the growing season is not the best time to be trying to consult with producers and have an open process, so probably gives themselves a little more time. Doesn't seem to be any huge urgency to make this happen, so maybe it's best to take your time and get it right and look forward to whatever they propose after full consultation in legislation about a year from now.
Ryan, of course, we also heard that the consultations are now open for the Beef Code of Conduct.
Yes, that's correct. It's open until June 12th, primarily an online type of public comment period. Farmers can check it out online. Just Google search Beef Code of Practice, and it should pop up as one of the first search results. But they're looking for feedback from producers about, what works and what doesn't. There's a first draft that's available for farmers to look over and again provide that feedback on if it applies to them or not, or maybe they have some good ideas on how things can be improved. So basically, the code of practice is just expectations laid out for animal welfare and care on livestock operations. So again, it's on until June 12th. It's mainly an online consultation period. So farmers can check that out if they have some time to check it out.
Kevin, your thoughts on this Beef Code of Practice?
Yeah, each species has a code of practice that's reviewed and then updated from time to time. And as these things go, usually requirements become more stringent. Now, a beef code of practice or any of the livestock code of practices, as I understand them, it's not like that's the law. It's what's considered the best practice for the science we know and what public expectations are. Sometimes that will then become a requirement or become a law because it's in a code, but the code is not in itself a law. But there are a number of things being proposed that will change operations, things like pain mitigation for castration and dehorning. The idea that below a certain body score, and I think it's a body score of 2, that's a problem. Well, they're trying to ward off instances where animals become really thin and then it becomes a humane issue. So it's something that producers may want to look through, because even though it isn't law, it does become important and could form part of regulations or should certainly be the expectation for how animals are cared for going forward.
Also this week, the Water Security Agency released their spring flood outlook with an update to it, and they're suggesting near to below normal runoff for most of Saskatchewan, but of course here in East Central Saskatchewan, we're the exception, basically from Yorkton to Hudson Bay to the Quill Lakes and back, that kind of rough triangle. They're suggesting there could be well above normal runoff. Kevin, what are your thoughts on the fact that this report came out, of course, and didn't take into account this latest snowfall?
Yes, and it's always difficult. You said a report like that, a lot of work goes into it. It takes time to get it written up and released, and then bingo, there's a big snowstorm that may change the outlook. But in this case, I don't think there's going to be a great deal more runoff across the south because of this latest storm. I've seen spring storms that were just horrendous and big snowbanks, and then it did cause excess runoff. But here in the area where I'm at, and I think it's probably true across most of the south, the runoff has occurred. And this snow, by and large, is going to soak into the ground. Probably won't really affect the runoff potential or the fact that this report came out before this last major storm event.
Also, this week, Sask Power put out their annual announcement that they're want farmers to be careful during spring seeding season. That's something you followed up on, Ryan.
Yeah, and spoke to Travis Kiesig, who's one of the Sask Party MLAs for Last Mountain Touchwood. I asked him about if any farmers in his constituency have ever, encountered that sort of incident where their equipment comes into contact with power lines, and he said there's usually at least one occasion where that unfortunately happens. So, still a good reminder for farmers to, plan their route ahead of time. Make sure that their equipment is low enough that they can get underneath the line if they need to, or have a spotter. And if they do end up contacting a line, just calling Sask Power 911 if it's an emergency. And there's even a process for properly getting out of the vehicle if it's on fire. So that's something that people can check out on saskagtoday.com or on Sask Power's website, whichever you may prefer. Interestingly enough, last year there was over 300 incidents reported about equipment hitting power lines. Sask Power saying all of them very preventable, and that's an increase from 2024 when there was around 262 incidents. So a little bit more frequency, unfortunately. So it justifies the annual reminder as we get closer to seeding.
Kevin, I know you've talked about power line safety in the past.
And it's interesting that these incidents are increasing, but perhaps it's because the equipment is larger. Perhaps it's because people are relying on GPS, and if you haven't sent a GPS boundary around the field and you're distracted or on your phone or starting to doze off after long hours and letting the GPS do the steering for you, that you can shoot out the end of your field and hit something you didn't expect to hit as far as a power line or a power post. So always a good idea to be thinking safety in all facets of the industry as things get busy in the weeks to come.
And finally, the Saskatchewan Agricultural Hall of Fame will be inducting 6 new members on Saturday night in Saskatoon. Kevin, I believe you're a member of that exclusive club, are you not?
Yeah, it's an honor to be a member of the Sask Ag Hall of Fame, and congratulations to all of this year's inductees. If you're ever at Western Development Museum in Saskatoon, that's where the Sask Ag Hall of Fame is housed, and everybody that's been inducted over the years, I think they're probably up to about 300 people have been inducted overall. There's pencil portraits of them there, and their bios there. It's also available on the website for Sask Ag Hall of Fame. But great to see that people are recognized, and most provinces do this, and there's also a national Ag Hall of Fame. So again, congratulations to the inductees for 2026.
All right, well, that will do it for this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hirsch, and 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director, Ryan Young, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director, Doug Falconer, saying so long until next time.